Well, it's finally here, folks. Week one of the NFL's 2025 regular season, as the Giants will head down to face the Washington Commanders. And yeah, it's real. Let's talk about it. Next on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. There's nothing else to say, folks. It is time. Yes, it is time. All of the talk, all of the chatter. It almost feels like a WWE promo. Put up the steel cage. Let's go. Let's have at it. No holds barred. All foreign objects allowed. Get the metal chairs. It is time. No more talk. The Giants and the Washington Commanders. Yep. The 3-0 preseason no longer means anything. You're 0-0, Giants, just like everybody else. Now it's time for the rubber to hit the road. Good evening, everybody. I'm Paul Dottino. So glad you could join us tonight for the Big Blue Breakdown Live. We are back for our second season. We are here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, as we look at this game and this season, and of course, I'll talk more about the specific preview elements of this game on Friday's edition of the show, which, as you guys know, as per our usual schedule, is a 20-minute taped edition of the key elements that will get you caught up on the three significant matchups to watch during the contest. But as we get into this program tonight, I just want to make it clear, this is no time to rest, no time to sleep, and no time, absolutely no time to kick your feet up and enjoy the last few days of summer. It is time to get pumped, to get excited, to get jacked up, and to prepare for whatever it is you're going to do Sunday at 1 o'clock to watch this football game. No matter where you are, you need to be electrified and intense for this football game. Because after all, you Giants fans have waited a long, long time to see a really good football team hit the gridiron. In fact, it's been since they beat Minnesota in the 2022 playoffs out there in Vikingsville. We all know what happened the following week against Philadelphia, and we all know what happened the previous 2 years coming into this opening day. You guys can now look forward to this game with an entirely different sense of electricity. You know that this team now has what it takes to compete. They just have to show it. All right, so what are we going to do tonight? Now that I got that stuff out of the way, because, folks, I've been bouncing off the ceiling for the last couple of days, and I'm actually afraid I'm going to wind up getting too tired by the time it gets to Sunday. That's how enthusiastic I am about this game coming up on Sunday. But let's ask you folks out there. I want to know, as the Giants start the season this weekend, what three things, let's say, are you most happy with? You've seen the draft. You've seen free agency. You've heard about training camp. Some of you have seen some of training camp. And of course, you've had the opportunity to watch 3 impressive preseason games. So, what are you really liking? Let's narrow it down. Give me the one thing that you really love about this team, and then 2 other also-rans. Give me one thing that really, really worries you about this team. And two maybe also rans that give you a little bit of trepidation, give you a little bit of indigestion. I think that's where I want to go with tonight's show. I'll tell you how I feel about all of this stuff. But first, let's talk about what happened today. Giants had a full practice session today, their first full practice of the week to prepare for Washington. Everybody was participating in practice, although left tackle Andrew Thomas was limited as they ramp him up and bring him back from his foot surgery. Now, you'll recall the Giants brought him off of the PUP, physically unable to perform list, a couple of days right before the New England Patriots preseason finale. So that means we're now approaching, well, it's 2 weeks that he's been activated and been allowed to get on the practice field and do some things either on the side with the trainers or actually in some positional drills. And that's where we're at today. Now, what does that mean for Sunday? Well, on the basis that he was limited today, I think the Giants training staff is probably going to take a very hard look at how he returns to camp tomorrow morning. I don't know exactly what their schedule is for him. I think they've got a pretty good idea, an educated guess. But do they really know exactly how they're going to play this? I would suspect once he comes back in tomorrow, sits with the trainers and says, look, this is how I feel. They may alter what the menu is for him tomorrow. Do they pull back a little bit? Do they do the same? Do they ramp him up a little bit? Well, they're running out of time because tomorrow is Thursday and kickoff in Washington is at 1 o'clock Sunday. So I would say it's getting really, really close for him to have much of a chance to play against the Commanders. But see, the Giants think that they've got this problem already solved because it was very quickly after free agency opened that they signed free agent James Hudson. They gave him a pretty good buck to be the third tackle or the swing tackle, if you will. They struck quickly and they gave him some pretty good money. Now, why is that significant? I mentioned to somebody today, and I'll be on the Big Blue Kickoff live show tomorrow afternoon, but I'm going to mention this now before we get to tomorrow's program. And the point is very simple. Joe Schoen in particular has told the media a few times since the spring that they really like James Hudson's experience. They like his attitude. They like his work ethic. They like his motor. There's a number of things that they like about him that make them believe that he is the highest quality swing tackle that the Giants have had in a few years. Well, I would say the point of all of this is that if you don't believe he can hold down the job adequately, well then, what's the point in going after him so quickly, giving him the money that you gave him to presumably be the guy to fill the shoes of a Thomas if he was unable to go? What's the point in even going after the player? But they made it a priority to do so. So I don't think this is as big of a disaster because we've all been talking about this for years. When Andrew Thomas doesn't play, the Giants' offensive line seems to crumble and roll downhill like an avalanche. We've all been talking about this for a while, and that has been the case in the past. But I would say this, because of the way the Giants pursued Hudson, the money they gave him, the confidence and the swiftness of the transaction, I would say, okay, Thomas was brought here for a reason, and this is the reason. So I think it looks more and more like Hudson's going to play on Sunday, and I don't think that's a reason to freak out. I suspect that he will do just fine, especially against a Washington Commanders pass rush that is significantly dwindled from years past. How dwindled? Well, let's put it this way. I believe Frankie Louvu, who had like 4 sacks last year, I believe is their leading return sack artist. I mean, Dante Fowler is gone. He went back to Dallas. They actually signed Von Miller. Yeah, that Von Miller, who seemed to have played decades ago with the Denver Broncos. They brought Von Miller in to see what he could do to try to resuscitate a sleeping pass rush. I should also point out to you that last year, the Washington Commanders had an awful lot of trouble against the run, as the Giants did. And it doesn't look like they did a whole lot to add to the front seven of that defense to make it significantly better. So it just so happens that Washington's biggest Achilles is their overall defense, their lack of pass rush, and their ability to stop the run. The Giants' biggest strength is their defense. What we believe to be an outstanding pass rush, elite, if you will, and one would suspect, we don't know yet, an enhanced ability to contain the run, thanks to gentlemen like Darius Alexander and Chauncey Golston and Abdul Carter and Roy Robertson Harris. So, if defense is the primary factor in winning games, and we all know it is because we've all read Football 101, this would bode very, very well for the Giants in this particular matchup. But again, we could talk more about that matchup. Well, if you guys want to chat me up on it, fine. If you want to call me or video me, that's fine too. But I'll save more about that matchup unless you fellas and ladies wish to discuss it tonight. I'll save more of that for Friday. But my point is that this Andrew Thomas situation does not appear to be one of those horribly critical deals that could unravel a season. So I give you that because that was the Giants' injury report today. There was no listing for Theo Johnson, and I know because you haven't read about Theo Johnson for the last several days, and there were people panicking that he was not practicing and worried that he was going to be out maybe for a significant period of time when nobody even had any clue as to what his ache or pain was. Well, guess what? He practiced today. Not an issue. And oh, by the way, Theo Johnson also talked to the media after the game and talked about how Russell Wilson does have a preference in his mind to throw to tight ends and does like hitting big targets. And Johnson said flat out, he thinks Russell Wilson's going to give him a lot of chances to make plays. Something we've heard from all the receivers, including Malik Neighbors, who also talked today and spoke about how him and Wilson have developed a really good, tight-knit chemistry throughout the offseason. And even though he wasn't out on the field as much as one would like with Wilson, because of all the time they've spent together, because they did take time throwing away from campus, that he believes mentally he is much sharper in tune with the quarterback and the offense than he had been last year when he was a rookie, and still rather nervous and trying to feel his way through. In fact, Neighbor said today he believes that his explosiveness is really going to come out this year at an even higher level than it did last season. So we throw that stuff out to you as we open up the program. Yes, Tay Banks, who had been unavailable for the last couple of weeks, he was out there too. Because remember, I told you, all of the guys on the roster were out at practice today. Now, whatever it was that was ailing Tay Banks, obviously that has set him back a little bit. So let's see if Cordell Flott, who has had a good camp, as Banks did, if it turns out that he has to at least start this first game, well, let's see how all of this translates for Flott. Because if he's called upon Sunday, it's going to be time to produce. Now, what else? Let's see. Johnson was out there. Banks was out there. Oh, yeah, the quarterback situation. Let's get into that for just a second before we go to all of your comments. And again, right below the screen here, or below my picture, my video, you see a link. You can hit me up with a phone call. You can hit me up with an audio call. Whatever you so choose, you are more than welcome to participate in the program. Let's go over this quarterback thing. Folks, we've been telling you this for years, and anybody who has followed official NFL depth charts, they know that whatever you get before week 1 is extremely unofficial. Okay? Really what happens is, at this time of year, fans, media, a lot of folks who maybe don't really know a lot about your team, it's especially for other people. For example, this week, what's the first thing that I did? I went and I pulled up a Washington Commanders depth chart so that I could familiarize myself with the players, the talent, the positioning of what Washington is going to bring to the table and put on the field Sunday. That's really what these unofficial depth charts are for this week. They're for the folks who haven't been paying attention much during the course of the offseason, and that they can go to the unofficial depth chart, take a look at it, and say, okay, these are the names that are on the team. Oh, I don't recognize him. I didn't recognize him. I didn't realize that this guy is now on this team. Wow, I must have missed that. Or, where is so-and-so? I thought he was still there, but I guess he's not with them anymore. More or less, that's what the depth charts are for. There is nothing about them that is truly, truly official. Nothing about them that is on the paper goes with the coach to the sideline or the press box of the game and it says, this guy's listed second on the depth chart, so he's the primary backup. He's got to go into the game next. That's not the way it works. Okay? So please understand, these depth charts, yes, they help give you some rough information about the team, but for people to get all bent out of shape and to say like, oh my goodness, look at this, Jaxson Dart was listed number 2 on the depth chart at quarterback, that must mean he's the number 2 quarterback on the team for the season, or at least for opening day. No, actually, that's exactly what it does not mean. So here's the thing. Brian Dable today was specifically asked about the quarterbacks and the depth chart. And what did he say? Quote, all three quarterbacks will be ready to play on Sunday. That's it. Now, I ask you folks to use a little common sense here. If Russell Wilson were to be knocked out of the game somehow on Sunday against Washington, you think about it. Jaxson Dart came here in April when he was drafted, fresh out of school. Yes, he's had some nice preseason snaps. Yes, he's had a terrific and impressive offseason. But you're playing the Washington Commanders on the road opening day in a game that would do an awful lot for the emotions, the mentality, and the psychology of the franchise should you come away with a victory, which, by the way, is within the division. How much sense does it make? For real, that if Wilson should have to come out of the game, that you would put Jaxson Dart in that position when you spent some money to sign a veteran named Jameis Winston to a 2-year deal because he has all the tools to give you a chance to win a National Football League game. Because not only has he done it for the better part of a decade, he has proven that he can lead a team downfield. Yes, I know about his interception percentage. I know about his ability to be erratic. I understand all of that, but we're not talking about someone who's got to start and play the entire season. That's why he's a backup. It's also why he is the number 2 backup when you draw and sketch out your off-season plans. It doesn't make much sense to alter that situation today. Jameis Winston has shown nothing to indicate that his physical talents have diminished, that he suddenly would fall to number 3 on the depth chart. Okay, so now we've gotten that out of the way. Oh, wow, it's amazing how panic sets in at the slightest drop of a crumb, even if it's not worth anything. Let's hit up some of our chats. Aiden Fink says, hi, Paul, it's finally time to talk about a regular season game. Go Big Blue, for sure. Big Blue says, good evening, Paul. Looking forward to a win in Washington. Need to start fast. I hope Cordell Flott gets to start. Is Banks become an issue a la Eli Apple? 89 hours to kick off. Thanks. No. I don't think that there is an issue per se in terms of off the field intangibles with Tay Banks as there were with Eli Apple. Tay Banks absolutely, legitimately had an ailment of some type. And I'm not at liberty to discuss because the team did not officially give out any medical or injury information about the player. So that is not for me to say. However, he did have a legitimate reason for being held out of practice. And I do believe that being held out of practice for a couple of weeks would certainly be reason, in my opinion, not to start him on Sunday. Unless they think within the next day or two he can suddenly ramp up that quickly and get himself ready and prepared. I'm not so sure that he can, just based on the amount of time that he missed as close to opening day as the team is. Allison says, listening for 30 minutes. Well, we're just about to the 30-minute mark, so I'll get to your chats in just a second here. As Benjamin Singer says, good evening, Paul. Curious, should Thomas be delayed in his return to left tackle and our rookie falters at left tackle? Who steps up next? Love your work, and as well as the whole crew. Absolutely. Benjamin, it's an easy answer. I just discussed James Hudson, the veteran from the Cleveland Browns, who was signed as an offseason free agent. He's the next guy up. It's not Marcus Bowe, the 5th-round draft pick out of Purdue, who played extremely well during the preseason. But he is not the next man up. It's Hudson who's the next man up. And that was the whole point of my early comments here in the program. Aiden Fink says Paul never gets tired. That is impossible. Aiden, some people have thought the very same thing. Allison says, defense and quarterback room, yay. I don't think anybody would disagree with you there, Allison. Trepidation, we have yet to see Aaron Thomas, Dexter Lawrence, Malik Neighbors. Will they be rusty? And will defensive backs take away the ball? All legitimate questions. Now, here's what I will say. I do think that although Dexter Lawrence told the media today he's been very, very happy with the ramp up and he is ready to go, I do think it is certainly plausible that he's not going to be at top form in the opening game against Washington, and it may even take him 2 or 3 games to be at top form. But then the question also remains, how high of a percentage does Dexter Lawrence have to play at to be good and to be effective, knowing that his standard puts him all the way up here because he's an all-world, all-universe NFL nose tackle? Is 80% of Dexter Lawrence good enough to beat a running back by committee Washington Commanders? He's going to need time to mesh with some of his new teammates, there's no doubt. Even though he has ramped up his practice with them, to get in the game is a little bit different. So I think that's a valid point. Andrew Thomas, a valid point. I do think as they're ramping him up, he won't be playing at the top of his game during the first couple of weeks either. But let's talk about that for just a second. Washington's pass rush is significantly muted. Dallas's pass rush, significantly muted. DeMarcus Lawrence is gone. Micah Parsons is gone. They brought in Dante Fowler. A retread is now back with Dallas because they're so desperate to find a pass rush. So, as crazy as this sounds, if you're going to have a Dexter Lawrence or an Andrew Thomas at less than 100%, or even not have an Andrew Thomas at all, given what Dallas's team is bringing to the table and what Washington's team is bringing to the table, maybe these aren't the worst games to have them at less than 100%. Or in Thomas's case, maybe not even playing. Washington does not have a proven potent running game. Washington does not have a proven potent pass rush. Guess what? Ditto for this new Dallas Cowboys team. And finally, before you head out, Allison, because I see we're 29 minutes in, Malik Neighbors, I don't know. I think I've seen enough of him in practice to know that him and Russell Wilson really are on the same page, and he's not just throwing out empty words. I do think that Neighbors and Wilson are going to be fine. And I think that Malik Neighbors, from what we have seen in his practice reps, he looks raring to go. And obviously, defensive backs taking away the ball. Yeah, that's an issue. The Giants were horrific in getting takeaways last year. Horrific. Paulson Adebo is a ball hawk at corner. That's why he was at the top of the market of free agent corners this past offseason. And the Giants struck, opening up their checkbook to go get this guy. He can play press man coverage. He could play off coverage. He's long, he's physical, he's strong, and most importantly, he attacks the football. This guy loves to create turnovers. And of course, they signed Javon Holland, a high-level safety in the free agent market from the Miami Dolphins as well. Allison also adds trepidation. We stop the run on defense? That's a show me situation, Allison. Again, ramping up Dexter Lawrence, trying to get him up to 100%. I don't know that he needs to be 100% to contain the running games of Washington and Dallas. I've been telling people that it is week 4 against the Los Angeles Chargers. That's the first of the Giants' opponents after Washington, Dallas, and then, of course, Kansas City when Patrick Mahomes comes into MetLife Stadium. It is really week 4 against the Los Angeles Chargers. Coach Jim Harbaugh and a Chargers team that wants to run the football. That is their DNA. That's the game where you are going to need to bring your best. Lace up those gloves, lace up those shoulder pads, and lace up those cleats, and you better grit your teeth and be ready for a slobber knocker. Because the LA Chargers, they want to bring the hammer to you with the run game. That's where we're really going to find out what the Giants' rush defense is all about. That's the real test. And if they contain the Chargers' run game in week 4 of this season, it will tell you an awful lot about how much the Giants' rush defense has improved. But that's for another day. That's week 4. This is only week 1. Benjamin Carrasco says, it is time. Yes, it is. Isaac Moore says, let's go. It's go time. Get this first W and the rest is gravy. Isaac, here's the problem. If you really feel that way, you will finish 1-16. No. 1 W is not enough. It is not the meat and potatoes, and the other 16 games are not gravy. 1-16 will not do the job. David G says, salute, Paul. Allison says, the net. Anyone leading a team would be stupid to share the depth chart before Sunday. Well, that's not a bad thought either. Because for competitive advantage reasons, with game 1 of the regular season on tap, yeah, you make a really good point. Why would anybody for that matter, not just Brian Dable, want to give out their legitimate depth chart before the first game of the year? Fair enough, Allison. Fair enough. Matt Seepersad says, had to come to YouTube. No Discord on Instagram. Matt, I'm not a techie, so I don't know exactly what that situation is. Let me see if I can message somebody, and maybe they can help us out. I don't know if they can or if they can't. Matt also says Austin Eckler is old. That is true. But Eckler, even though he is a running back, he's used much more in the passing game than he is as a conventional runner anyway. So, that's not a significant factor per se. They're going with Ja'Cory Cross-Key-Merritt. He's a rookie 7th-round pick who the Commanders really think highly of. They've got Chris Rodriguez, veteran who's been there now. This will be, his 3rd season in the league. And Jeremy McNichols, the former San Francisco 49er. And Rodriguez and McNichols are obviously contrasting kinds of backs. That's their running back by committee. Now, at this moment, I would say that does not necessarily shake too many boots. Sam Cosmi, who has been their best offensive lineman for a couple of years, he's injured. He's not going to play. So they're going to plug in the veteran Andrew Wiley, the former Kansas City Chief, at right guard. They've got rookie Josh Connolly, a first-round pick, who's going to be making his debut at right tackle against one Kayvon Thibodeau. And, of course, against Abdul Carter, I'm sure, many times, and even sometimes against Brian Burns. Really, the strength of their offensive line has got to be the offseason trade with Houston for left tackle Laramie Tunsil, who, as we know, is one of the top shelf tackles in the league. So, you know, they've got some talent along the offensive line. But Brandon Coleman's at left guard. Tyler Bidage is at the former Dallas center, is hiking the football. They've got some talent on the line, there's no doubt. But there's going to be question marks about what does Wiley have and what does Connolly have to offer in his first NFL game. So those are interesting thoughts. You mentioned here rookie tackle. You mentioned I don't think they will run the ball well at all. I don't think so either. I also believe Giants will be stunting and overloading the young tackle. Well, that's Connolly, the right tackle you're talking about. Your thought here is we're going to be 3-1, 2-2 going into New Orleans, I hope. Do yourself a favor, Matt. Don't look ahead. If this Giants team is going to be as good as they can be, if they're going to be, guess what? They're going to have to play it one game at a time. There's no way this team, especially given recent results, can overlook or sleep on anybody. Am I telling you that this is a challenge that they could climb and that they could take care of on Sunday? Yeah. Realistically, you have to have confidence. You have to be assertive. You have to have belief. Yes, this particular matchup on Sunday is one the Giants can handle. There's no doubt about that. Did you watch the two games with the Commanders last year? The Giants, I think, have gotten significantly better. I don't necessarily believe that about the Commanders, who I think their defense has probably gone backwards. And we've already talked about the fact that Brian Robinson's no longer in the backfield. Their running back core is not the same. And Terry McLaurin just came in, onto the practice roster after holding out, then, quote, holding in. And what happened last year when Lamb and Ayuk, and of course the outstanding receiver from the Cincinnati Bengals, all three of those guys, they played contract issues, and they got off to terrible starts in September because they weren't at 100%. And when wide receivers aren't 100% because they haven't been doing what they're supposed to be doing, they usually get off to a slow start. Jamar Chase, of course, from the Bengals I'm talking about. So I don't think McLaurin is going to be anywhere near 100%. I want to get to C. Webb's video call here in just a second. So just hang tight with me because I just want to make sure we get Matt's full thoughts out of the way. He says Chargers will be starting a rookie running back in Omarion Hampton, who, by the way, is a sensational all-around talent. No, he's for real. And the Chargers will always, as long as they're under Coach Jim Harbaugh, want to run the ball. So you better be concerned about Hampton. Yes, I know Najee Harris limited because of the eye injury. I understand that. But you still have to think about the run first when you talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. Yes, and he also mentioned Slater is out for the season. Well, Slater is a tackle who is known primarily, he's a terrific player, but everybody knows him primarily for his pass blocking skills on the edge. So no, I'm still holding firm that the Chargers are the most potent rushing attack the Giants will play early in the season. And that's, to me, is going to be a significant litmus test. Matt finally says, okay, Paul, 1-0, one game at a time. And I also mentioned here, Marie Garcia says, should we be worried about our wide receiver room outside of Neighbors? Everybody seems to be healthy and ready to go. So I don't think so. All right, let's go and add C. Webb to the stage, one of our regulars. There you are, my friend. How you been?
Dot, how you doing, man?
Good to talk to you. I'm jacked up, man. I'm jacked up.
Ready to go, man.
I
We're
just,
3 days away.
oh,
I can't believe it.
public
Football's in
service
the
here in New
air.
Jersey supplies all the power and gas and electric here to the people in the North Jersey market. They called me up asking if they could borrow some of my energy tonight.
There you go. I'm excited. I mean, like you said, we kind of had our way with them offensively last year. Was able to drive the football from a defensive standpoint. Nobody on that roster really scares me, and can really take over a game from a defensive standpoint.
Well, McLaurin, to be fair, C-Web, McLaurin is a
I'm talking
headache
about
player, but he's not the same guy right now. Right?
I'm talking about from a Commander's defensive perspective.
Well,
from their defense.
And here's what's interesting about that, and I want to mention that because,
yes, they have
know,
Johnny Newton, Luvu.
Mm-hmm. Well, their best players, I think, are their corners. They've got two really good corners, Lattimore and Amos, the second-round draft pick. He's got a lot of talent. Mm-hmm. He's a good player. All right, and Saintstroll out of Michigan, their nickelback, is in his second season. I think he's a talented player too. So they've got some corners who can really play. I'm not real fond of the safeties. Bobby Wagner, I'm thinking he must have started his rookie season when they were still using 8mm black and white film. Mm-hmm. But you can't dispute the fact that he's Dan Quinn's guy, and that's why he brought him to Washington anyway last year. And he's the heart and soul of the defense. And I get Luvu. Luvu was a journeyman until last year. All of a sudden, he had a career season. I mean, I don't know. Do it once, I get you. But show me if you can do it a second year in a row. So right. I'm with you that I'm not overly impressed with the Washington starting defense of 11. I would agree with that.
I guess the question is offensively, can we put up 21, 24 points to make it easier on our defense to win this football game?
Yeah. Well, how about this? How about the special teams doesn't suffer a brutal loss as they did in the first play last year when they went down to Washington and Graham Gano was lost for the game.
Yeah, can't happen.
How about that?
Yeah.
I mean, that first game, and by the way, that game in Washington, if you play that back in your head, you had Gano lost on the opening kickoff.
I was there in the flesh, Pete, and I couldn't believe it.
Right? So you lose that. You lose your kicker for the game, and they only had Gillen, the punter, kick one PAT. And then they didn't kick anything the rest of the day.
Yeah, that he missed. Yeah.
Right. So you lost your kicker. You had a Devin Singletary fumble, I want to say at the Washington 35-yard line.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the very end of the game on fourth down, when you're driving inside the 15, Malik Neighbors drops a pass inside the sideline. I mean, basically the game was gift wrapped to Washington. Gift wrapped. They outplayed them.
Mm-hmm.
So I hear you.
I'm with you from a standpoint of 1 week at a time. Let's see if we can get up and get the best product on the field. I was having conversations actually with a few people and my dad earlier in reference to Brian Daboll. And do you think it's fair if this Giants team doesn't come out ready to play, that it's an indictment on him if there's issues with being able to protect the quarterback and stop the run? If this offense defensive line is not saying they have to be all world, but not mediocre or below mediocre, is it fair to say that you can still judge Brian Daboll or expect the quarterback or everyone else to overcome those issues of not being able to protect the quarterback or not the defense to not be able to stop the run and getting into second and long and third and long, so we can see that pass rush?
Well, I think your 2 points are very valid, but you can't make a snap judgment after one game.
Fair.
I think you're right. both of those items are incredibly significant and important if the Giants are going to be as competitive as
To any
they
football
have,
team, you
the
got to have it.
potential that they have.
Mm-hmm.
But I think, C-Web, the thing that we have to keep in mind is that even though Brian Dable did play his starters more this preseason than he had in the past, and by the way, I give him a huge thumbs up for that. I think you would agree from
Yeah,
the tenor
yeah.
of your conversation that
Mm-hmm.
that's a really good idea.
I think that's kind of where he evolved as a coach. Mm-hmm.
I agree. I agree. Now, does that automatically mean they'll come out of the gate playing their best on both sides of the ball?
No guarantee. No.
No guarantee. And if they do fall flat in one of those two key areas, well, as much as I hate to say it, we all remember what happened in 2007 when Spags' defense fell horribly flat the first 2 weeks of the season, and then in week 3 down in Washington, it all got fixed. I mean, September football is still September football. It is still a virtual extension of the preseason by most coaches' estimates. So it's still an evolving process. But I think the pure talent in both of those areas, or if not pure talent, the circumstances surrounding the talent in the offensive line's case, I think will produce some immediate results. I don't think they're going to be clicking at 100% on all cylinders right out of the gate, but I do think it is reasonable to expect them to show improvement in both areas right from the get-go.
And being able to start faster than they did in years past. Is that fair?
No doubt.
Yeah.
Look, C-Web, one of the things that we used to talk about all the time back in the day when Parcells was head coach, we never use fancy terms, right? The nomenclature has changed over the years, and everybody loves to use fancy terms. But you're right, football is football. And, you know, Parcells would always talk about the psychology of results. Winning breeds winning, and losing breeds you know what.
Yep.
Okay? And it is important for the Giants to get over that hump of A, starting slowly, which they've done in most recent seasons. It is important that they get a win in the division because everybody knows that's the first step into becoming a better football team. And then number three is a little bit more into the forest, and that is this team has to stop playing from behind as they have in each of the last 2 seasons, when they have constantly dug themselves a first quarter hole and had to go get a tractor trailer.
1-3 or 1-4,
yeah,
and expect to make runs.
And not just in record, C-Web, but even in individual games.
Yeah, going down 14-0 or.
Come on.
Yeah, you don't have a shot.
You can't continuously try to drag a tractor trailer, you know, from the bottom of a cliff back up to the summit of the mountain. You can't do that every single week and expect to be any good.
Right.
So game flow is another one of those fancy terms that's come into nouveau over the last several years. We just used to call it, you don't want to always have to play uphill. You don't always have to be coming from behind. Well, nowadays we call it game flow. Well, if your game flow isn't very good, that basically handcuffs you in a lot of ways and has a significant negative impact across the entire atmosphere and karma of your ball club. So I agree with you. It's a significant game, more significant than most opening days have been for the Giants in recent years.
Look at 2022 when we went and beat the Titans, and look what that did for the entire team, the confidence, everybody. It felt like everyone was rejuvenated, and like you said, winning breeds a whole new identity. And people play with confidence.
You know, C-Web, did you make it out to training camp at all?
I did.
You did? Okay.
I saw you. You shook my hand.
That's right. You did. Look, I had so many people that came up to me during camp.
For some reason, I stick out.
I appreciate you. But here's my point. Did you feel the vibe?
Oh, absolutely. Whole different mentality, it felt like, for the
And
past few
every
weeks.
member of the national media who comes to camp, whether it was Ian Rappaport, whether it was Albert Breer, Judy Batista from NFL Network,
Mm-hmm.
Chris Sims from NBC Sports, Kay Adams from Up and Adams, Brian Baldinger, every national media person who has come to Giants camp has left there saying,
This
wow,
is the same
things are
old
different.
Giants. Yeah.
Things are different. Something's happening here. They're cooking some sauce on the stove. You could smell it in the kitchen,
Maybe
right?
it's Joe Shane doing a great job by finding talent, and they're finally developing it. Maybe the pieces are starting to come together. Got to see it
Well,
pen to paper, though. Yeah.
again, I don't want to get carried away here because they still haven't played a game,
Mm-hmm.
but all indications are it's going in the right direction. I mean, I'm going to equate it to this. Have you ever looked forward to a blockbuster movie that was going to come out in 2 or 3 years? And then finally, in the months leading up to the movie, they released the trailer. And you love the trailer, and it makes you that much more excited to see the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But if the trailer comes out and the trailer's a dud, well, that kind of leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth before the movie even starts to premiere in the theaters. You're like, wait a minute, I waited 3 years for this movie and the trailer doesn't look so good. What was I doing? Well,
Right.
I'd say the trailer looks pretty good right now. But we'll have
Right.
to see. We'll have to see. Doesn't mean the movie's going to be great, but it's better
Right.
than the alternative.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's where we're
What
at.
is your biggest concern looking at Sunday from this team standpoint, whether it be offensively or defensively?
Well, I think for me, I'll go big picture here because I've kind of
Mm-hmm.
talked about a couple of the matchups, and we'll do more of that on Friday's program. But big picture, okay? Yes, the offensive line is still in show me phase. We have every reason to believe that they're functional. You know my word. My word is functional. If you have a
Mm-hmm.
functional offensive line like they did in 2022, it
Mm-hmm.
gives you a chance to do some really nice things.
You got a shot. Yeah.
Okay, you got to have a shot, you need a functional offensive line. I think this offensive line is functional, but I don't know it until I see it in a real
Where are
game.
you with Andrew Thomas? Do you think he's going to play?
As I said earlier in the program, I think it's less and less likely because he was limited today in their first real practice of the week to prep for Washington. So to me, that was not a great sign, but I think tomorrow's going to tell the story a lot more than today because he's going to have to talk to the trainers in the morning after sleeping on it tonight, doing limited work, and see how he feels.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this organization strongly believes in James Hudson.
If he's serviceable,
So,
yeah.
so again, he's got to be just functional. And against the Washington team that seems to have lost its pass rush.
Yeah, you don't have anybody that can take over a game.
Right.
Yeah.
So being functional isn't necessarily a hard thing to do this week. All right. Having said that, so the O-line is in show me phase. The rush defense is in show me phase. I like the additions to the front seven. I
Mm.
really do. Whether it's Golston,
Do you think
Alexander,
Robertson might
Harris,
take
Carter.
over for Nacho? Do you think Nacho loses his job to
Well,
Robertson?
Nacho is certainly in the rotation.
Yeah,
I don't think he's
rotation.
losing his job. He's in the rotation, but
Less
did you get a
snaps.
look at Robertson Harris at training camp?
He
That
looked
guy
great.
is a moose.
Yeah, he looked great. That's why I was asking. I could see him giving him more reps compared
I
to
could
Nacho.
see that happening. Sure, I could. So I think they've put tools in place that can take care of that leaky plumbing. I don't know it yet, but that's another show me spot.
Do we have true depth on the defensive line, interior defensive line?
Not really.
Yeah.
Not really. You know, look, one step at a time, C-Web.
Yeah, can't fix
One
everything.
step at a time. Can't fix everything at once.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'm
yeah, depth would be a concern there. I mean, if Dexter Lawrence gets hurt, that would be just a monument. In fact, in years past, we've often said that Andrew Thomas, outside of the quarterback, might be the guy you could least afford to lose. Can I go on record as saying right now, Dexter Lawrence would be the guy you could least afford to lose on this team?
Absolutely.
And my third item that causes me trepidation is the Giants' inability to stop the big play defensively last season. They gave up far too many big plays. And that's a shame because, they had a top 10 pass rush, which meant they should have been better in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
But they weren't. That secondary just didn't hold up. Well, what did they do? Just like we talked about in the front seven against the run, they've added tools to the toolbox to stop those leaks. Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland. Those are big-time additions.
Mm-hmm.
And I still believe in Tay Banks. And I've always believed in Cordell Flott. So, those are three areas that I would still have trepidation about.
Mm-hmm.
I think this team is good. I really do. I think it's a good team. I think it's a good roster. But those are three areas right now that I would have to say are still show me areas. They got to do it. They got to do it in regular season games at a level that will allow them to win. But let me ask you something. You look at Washington and Dallas. Don't you think they've got a bunch of show me areas too?
Absolutely.
Well, so which team solidifies the most show me areas is going to be the team that finishes in second place in this division to the ever strong Philadelphia Eagles.
Totally agree.
I said that this morning on Washington Sports Radio during drive time, and I think I absolutely floored the four hosts who were on the morning crew when I told them that. They could not understand how second place in this division is up for grabs.
Mm-hmm. Well, everybody tries to just simplify and say, oh, we have a quarterback that immediately makes us second place. And it's not that simple.
Right. Mm-hmm. And by the way, I love how the Giants had 3 wins, so immediately, okay, their carcass is already starting to collect flies before the season started. Yet 2 years ago, Washington had 4 wins, and they wound up with 12 last year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, weren't we all talking about Washington in a similar vein,
Absolutely.
last summer? Like, okay, Washington's a last place team. They're an also-ran team.
Absolutely.
But that's not how it turned out.
Right.
So, all right, C-Web, you got anything else?
I'm good. Are you going to be down there?
Oh, of course. I do pre-game radio, post-game television. So, as always, I'll be at every game doing what I do.
On the sideline, right?
I will not be working sideline. I will be doing pregame radio from the press box. I will be doing post-game interviews. If the Giants win, I will be down on the field to do post-game interviews on the field before I head to the locker room.
Awesome.
Yeah. But I don't get to peruse the sideline the entire games like I do during the preseason. The rule restrictions in the NFL are a little different during the regular season.
At home too now, or different?
Well, it actually has to do with NFL regulations in terms of how many people are allowed on the sideline for a home team and how many people are allowed on the sideline for a road team.
Got it.
And those regulations, kind of restrict certain accesses.
Right.
But none. Don't fret, because
You'll still get all the
if the
information.
Giants win, I promise you, I'll be out there on the 40-yard line talking to one of those players on the MSG postgame show.
Can't wait for it.
All right, my man,
Yeah.
you be good.
Take care, P-Dot.
Thank you, C-Web. Always love hearing from C-Web, one of our favorite loyal listeners here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. And see, it's very easy. You can make a phone call or you can make a video call, and we'd love to hear from you on the program. All right, let's see. Who else wants to chime in here today? We got some chats going. Aiden Fink says, no injury bug, please. Extra pads. You want them to all play in bubble wrap, Aiden? Is that the idea? We'll put bubble wrap around each individual player. Oh, my. The Focus says, hey, Paul, any thoughts on Gunnar Olszewski? I'm glad he made the roster. I feel like he could be a surprise for us this year. Do the coaches speak of him much? Well, if you recall, 2 years ago, when the Giants picked him up, he had been released by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had had a good returning career earlier in his tenure in the NFL with the Patriots. In fact, 1 year he averaged over 11 yards per punt return to lead the league. Pittsburgh thought he had some dropsies issues, so they got him. Giants pick him up, and he has a terrific year as the Giants punt returner. Then last year, hamstring, groin injuries, IR'd the whole season. They don't bring him back. Smith Marset winds up getting picked up off the street and has a great year returning kickoffs. So what happens this year? They re-signed Smith Marset, and during training camp, Bryce Ford Wheaton winds up ripping his Achilles. And now the Giants need to replace him with a receiver in the middle of training camp, thinking, well, it's probably best we sign somebody who has an idea about the system. So they signed Gunnar Olszewski back after he'd been sitting out there the whole offseason without joining a team. They signed Olszewski with the thought that he knows the system, he knows the plays, he can run the plays in training camp. That's going to be better for our offense if we have someone who we don't have to teach from scratch. And what does Olszewski do? He winds up catching everything that's thrown to him. Playing the slot, playing the boundary, handling kick returns. He played incredibly well during training camp and actually beat out Smith Marset, who was re-signed to a regular contract to be the Giants kick returner / deep depth chart wide receiver. Olszewski just flat out beat him out and stole his job. That's how well he played. He is a very intense, very physical, very rugged individual who has done nothing but produce whenever he's been in a Giants uniform. And they feel really good about having him on this team, especially after he was in a prove-it phase during training camp and stole somebody else's job. That tells you how much he wanted it, and that tells you the level of play that he was able to put on the field. They recognized it. They rewarded him. He earned it. Isaac Moore says, what about Deebo Samuel? Hopefully we get some big hits on him. Well, Deebo Samuel is like the original version of Wan'Dale Robinson, right? He's the guy who was with San Francisco, comes over in the trade, and you're going to see him in the slot. You're going to see him running wide receiver screens. You're going to see him running end arounds. You're going to see him running circle screens. You know, this is one of those guys who you want to get him the ball as quickly as possible in as many different formations as possible and as many different spots as possible, quick hitting slants, you know, quick hitting button hooks, hot reads, and you want to hope that his athleticism will get you a bunch of yak yardage. He's a terrific player. No one would ever ignore that. He's got a lot of talent. In fact, this morning when I was talking to the people in Washington, I said to them, "Yeah, we know what Deebo Samuel is, and he's been in camp, obviously, unlike McLaurin, who hadn't done a lot during training camp. So he's certainly clicking on all cylinders. Is Deebo Samuel. So it's quite clear that that guy has to be someone you game plan for. I don't necessarily think at this point he's not quite as maybe dangerous as he has been in the past, but we'll see. Maybe he'll have a resurgence and have a very dangerous season and be a headache player once again, because he was really a pain in the neck kind of player when he was playing for the 49ers. Isaac Moore, I guess he's talking about last year's game in Washington. He says only the Giants could lose that game. Well, I meant last year. It's behind us. Yes, that is correct. Renee Renteria says, G-Men, let's get it. The Focus says, I'm excited. I feel like this team has been preparing for a fast start. They could get a jump start on some less prepared teams. We won't see what they are actually heading until maybe mid-October. Focus, I talk about this all the time. I've been talking about it for years. And only in the last year or two do you hear more and more media folks realize that, yes, it takes a few weeks into September before your team actually hits its stride and shows you what they're really going to be. Now, the more snaps you give your veteran starters during the preseason, in theory, not necessarily true, but in theory, it might give you a better opportunity to accelerate that curve and find your team's true performance level a little bit quicker. I think that's the road the Giants are on right now. We don't know that for sure. We won't know that for the next few weeks. But I do think that's where the Giants are at. Aiden Fink says, yes, bubble wrap. Oh, it would take an awful lot to just cover even Dexter Lawrence, wouldn't it? Oh, boy. Tyler Ladd says, not beating my Commanders. Well, let me put it to you this way, Tyler. I don't know if that's because you're a Washington Commanders fan or you live down there or what the situation is. But if you have actually looked at that roster very carefully, looked at their schedule, last year they had a very soft schedule. They had people that were very unfamiliar with Daniels at quarterback, being that he was a rookie. He's a sensational athlete, a tremendously skilled player who came onto the scene and really shocked the world. In some cases, he was extremely lucky and very fortunate. And we all know you can't plan on luck too many times, because at some point it's going to run out. Especially as C.J. Stroud found out in your second NFL season as a quarterback, after you explode onto the scene as a rookie, you often have to face much more difficult circumstances. So please understand that it is eminently possible that Jaden Daniels will not have as impressive a second season as he did as a rookie, and he will not be able to constantly pull rabbits out of a hat week in and week out, especially with a supporting cast that, quite frankly, has taken some dings since last season. No, I do not expect the Washington Commanders to be a 12-win team this year. Far from it, to be honest with you. And certainly this is a team on Sunday in the New York Giants that is fully capable of beating them. And if you watch the two games between the Giants and the Commanders last year, you would also understand that. Greg Turdhaller says defensive ends got to stay disciplined setting the edge. Well, that's always the case. anytime you face a mobile quarterback. I mean, that just simply goes without saying. Greg also says 60 sacks this year or what, Paul? Greg, I think the Giants will be up over 50. I'm looking at somewhere in the low 50s, 52, 53, something like that. That's what I think the Giants will have. Aiden Fink says, Daniels has taken a step back this year's Stroud. Again, I certainly think it's reasonable to expect him to take a step back. Will he? None of us know the answer to that for sure, Aiden. But he doesn't have a proven running game right now. It is a running back by committee in Washington. And that certainly is a impediment. We know that Cosme, who have been their best lineman, again, I know Jeremy Tunsil's there now, so we have to kind of, put full context into this. But Cosme is unavailable right now, and that's a problem. And, of course, McLaurin is not at 100%. So that's a bit of a problem. And, oh, yeah, Zach Ertz. Been around forever. And at some point, that gas tank will also run dry. So, yeah, I think anybody who automatically thinks the Washington Commanders are going to pick up where they left off last season and be right there in the NFC Championship game with 12 victories, I think they're really fooling themselves, and fooling themselves a lot. Matt Seepersad says, Russell Wilson, last 5 games in Pittsburgh. Bengals, Seahawks, Ravens, Bills to end season. No question. Tough run. Not many would do well. You're right. I think Russ had a very good year, 30-plus touchdowns, 8 to 12, or has a very good year. 30-plus touchdowns, 8 to 12 interceptions, 3,400 yards. Matt, you had a few things that were at play in Pittsburgh. Apparently, the relationship between Russ and the offensive coordinator was not as smooth as silk. You had the fact that they played much better defenses there towards the end of the season. You had the fact that the Steelers were not as balanced as an offense as they need to be to keep defenses honest, which at this stage of his career is very important. You have to be able to have good game flow and to have balance with your running game. That's critical. His wide receiver room was not as productive as they wanted it to be. It was rather disjointed at times. That was another factor with Russell Wilson. And then last but not least, during the course of the year when things got cold in December and it was the end of the season, he was a little bit worn out. And you could tell that, there was a little bit of gas taken out of that gas tank. And that could happen. He's at an advanced age now. He's been in this league for 14 seasons. So you do have to be a little wary sometimes as you get to the end of the season that you're not going to be as fresh as a rose. The kind of passes and the kind of plays you make in September won't always be the same ones that you can make in December when it's cold and nasty, especially in Pittsburgh. And then, of course, you've had the toll of the season on top of your shoulders. Gary Gaston says, hi, P-Dot. We always play Washington, and I think we are better than last year. I think he means Giants always play Washington tough. I mean, the Giants have owned Washington for years and years and years and years. And then, of course, the tables turned last year, and Washington won the sweep, although the Giants gave them 2 very difficult games. Jay Fed says, which Giant gets the first sack of the season? And Aiden Fink responds, I'd say Burns. Jay Fed says, yep, I'm thinking Burns as well. I'll go there too. Why not? Certainly could be. Look, there's going to be a lot to go around. But yeah, sure, why not? James O'Keefe says, sophomore slump, hopefully for Daniels. Gary Gaston, Paul, can you provide us with some inside info on if you think Thomas will play on Sunday? Gary, I spent an awful lot of time talking about this at the beginning of the program. Please get a look at the archive, rewind, and go take a look. Again, I would say because he was limited today, you're going to have to listen to what he tells the trainers tomorrow, how he's feeling, how he's progressing, if at all, or if he takes a step back. I would say it's a heck of a lot less likely. I'm less optimistic about Thomas playing today than I was last week. I was hoping that his ramp up would go quickly and that he would be in there. Because he was limited today, I am less optimistic of that. And so James Hudson is a guy who, they have a lot of faith in. Isaac Moore says, don't they have a washed up Eckler? Well, Eckler still makes plays in the passing game. But as far as being a dangerous running back these days, I think those years are behind him. Matt Seepersad says again, which wide receiver scores first and why is it Malik Neighbors? Ha ha. I'm not sure that that's funny, man. I'm laughing, but I'm not sure if that's funny. But which wide receiver scores first in the game? That's a crapshoot. I mean, who knows? Heck, it could wind up being Darius Slayton for all we know. I don't think anybody in New York or New Jersey would mind that, right? Oh, man. Let me just grab a bit of a drink here. So, Matt also adds, Hudson is a good, reliable veteran tackle. I would imagine he took most of the reps with first team this offseason. That is true, Matt. And during the 3 preseason games, he was the starting left tackle for the Giants. I will say this. The coaching staff and his teammates, they love his motor, his energy, his enthusiasm. He is a bit of a trash talker. He gets under people's skin, at least the other team, that is. But the guys in the locker room say they love having him around and that he's a real energizer and really does help the attitude of the offensive line. Tulio says, good evening, and good evening back to you. Aiden Fink does mention, and he's right, Hudson committed quite a few penalties against Buffalo. The opening drive, Russell Wilson led the Giants down to a field goal in Buffalo, and Hudson had penalties on back-to-back plays. But Wilson was still able to get them down into field goal range, and they put a 3-pointer up on the board before the Bills could even blink. So, yes, I am aware of that, Aiden. Believe me. Again, it's simple. If Andrew Thomas is out of the lineup, you're asking James Hudson to be functional. And I think there's a lot of belief amongst the Giants personnel, whether it's the coaches, the front office, or the teammates, that James Hudson is functional. That's what you're looking for. That's the most important thing that you could say about your swing tackle or your third tackle. All right, we've got about 10 minutes left in the program. And let me see what else we could talk about here because, again, we are open to taking your chats on the right side of the screen. We got over 800 live views tonight. Oh, I'm a little surprised compared to last week. I know last week was a roster cut, but we did well over double that during last week's program. Matt also chimes in with another chat. He says, if I'm not mistaken, Bobby O was playing at a, quote, more hurt than usual level. That's true. Okereke was a bit banged up last year, no question about that. Brian Burns was really banged up last year. I mean, he showed me that he is, both guys actually did, but I already knew about Okereke. They're both pros. And Burns in particular, who was really banged up all season. I mean, there were times, if you watch the games play in and play out, There were times he was slow getting up. There were times he was slow to come off the field. He even needed some assistance to come off the field. And then the next possession, he was out there again, giving everything that he had. And this happened on numerous occasions with Brian Burns during the 2024 season. He was selected first alternate to the Pro Bowl, which does not surprise me considering, what he was able to do all around, not only with the pass rush, but also against the run. He's a guy, and somebody asked me this, or they were about to ask me this, and I actually beat them to the punch when I said, Brian Burns is a guy who could have played with some of those great linebacker units of the Giants of the past. He really could have. He's that kind of guy and that kind of player and that kind of talent. And then, of course, Bobby O, as we know, the back injury that he had wound up knocking him out of the lineup, toward the end of last season. Tulio says, I'm hyped. My fear is a field goal block type of play that put our energy to the ground. Hoping to be competitive until the last minute Sunday. Start 1-0 would be awesome. Yeah, Tulio, earlier in the program, we talked specifically about the psychology and the emotional value and the mentality that would be boosted by a victory, not only opening day, but on the road in the division. There's a tremendous amount of intangible value to be gained by the Giants should they be able to win this game on Sunday. All right, so let's go back over something here. What did I told you earlier about the 3 areas of show me that the Giants really have to put forth if they're going to be the kind of team that we think they can be. Well, what are the 3 things that I really, really like that I don't have any doubt about right now? Well, obviously the pass rush. There is absolutely no question about the Giants' ability to get to the quarterback. They were a top 10 in sacks last year. I believe they finished 8th. And now they have added the likes of Golston and Abdul Carter. And again, healthy Brian Burns. Dexter Lawrence looks like he's just now reaching his prime. And Robertson Harris looks like he's going to be a significant addition in the free agent market. And quite honestly, maybe a really nice steal that was kind of under the radar on that defensive line. And quite honestly, we've really not even talked much about Kayvon Thibodeau, who during the offseason sought out a wrestling coach because he thought that it would enhance his game. So he reduced his body fat, put on some more muscle and more strength, and then sought out a wrestling coach to help teach him wrestling moves that he could potentially use in a game to become a better finisher to close the pocket and get more sacks. We know a couple of years ago he had 11.5. And then that number was cut in half this past year because in his mind, he didn't finish quick enough. He's hoping that the techniques he learned from the wrestling coach will allow him to do so. And I understand that. That makes some sense. Oh, by the way, there's Tudo. He is back. One of our Super Chat loyal viewers. There he is again. Tudo. We thank him as always. Our man from the rugby club over in Italy. And let's see here. He does not indicate exactly, just says greetings from our entire rugby club in Italy. So maybe they are in Italy right now. Because folks, if you're a regular viewer to our program, you know that Tudo and his Italian rugby club, they go all over the place. They are not afraid to travel. In fact, I'd love to know some of the frequent flyer mileage that he and his team have built up over the course of the years. But it looks like he is. We're going to look. Hopefully, maybe he'll get back to us. Tudo, let us know where you are and if you got a match coming up this week. And I will get back over to you in a minute. Let me see who else we have here. And again, thank you so much for being a super user and being a member of our super chat over there. Ant Breaking News says entire season depends on Shane Bowen able to stop the run. Well, again, that is one of the key areas of show me, prove it to me. We think the Giants have better personnel to do it. Let's see how they handle things. Isaac Moore says, are we back to a NASCAR package? I don't want to ever call something again a NASCAR package. That was reserved for a very special group of guys who won a Super Bowl championship. I would never use that NASCAR package name or nickname ever again for another group of pass rushers. Let's see here. Tudo says, Paul, we're in Italy, and we had our second win of the season against much stronger teams and shocked the world, mate. All right. Way to go, Tudo. Second win of the season against a stronger team. Well, Tudo, for what it's worth, if the Giants were to beat Washington on Monday, apparently there are people all around the country who would believe that that would indeed be a victory against a much stronger team. I don't necessarily agree with that opinion. I just think it would be a victory against a team that the Giants certainly have belief that they can beat. But if people want to call it an upset, they certainly can. But in any event, all right, that's great. Well, I'm glad you guys are back in Italy, and I do hope you have continued to save your frequent flyer mileage so that on your next trip to another location, you'll be able to use some of those points. We got a few minutes left here on the program. Just there was a reminder, we will be back on Friday with another edition of the Big Blue Breakdown. That is a taped program. We take 20 minutes to go over a look at the opponent the Giants are going to play this weekend, the Washington Commanders. We'll break a few things down a little bit more in detail than what we did earlier tonight. And of course, we will talk about the three critical matchups, or the three key matchups to watch. And I guess I'll let one of them out of the bag for you now. It's going to be Brian Burns against Laramie Tunsil, the outstanding left tackle who Washington acquired in a trade from the Houston Texans. Burns is mostly on the Giants' right edge of the defense, and so you would think that he would get the most snaps against Tunsil. And to me, that is certainly a marquee matchup to watch. One of the three key matchups that you would love for the Giants to win if they are going to prevail on Sunday. I don't know that they have to win that matchup, because even if Tunsil were to hold Burns to a stalemate, that still leaves Dexter Lawrence to potentially dominate Biotish at center. It still leaves the potential of Carter to beat whoever he's going to beat when he's rushing the quarterback. And also it leaves Thibodeau on the other side to potentially give a hard time to Connerly, who will be making his NFL debut. Tudo does chime back. It says, Paulie, our club owns their own private jet for traveling purposes. All right, how about that? I should have figured that out, right? I should have figured that out. Of course, you guys have your own private jet, so you don't need those frequent flyer points. But maybe you could pick up those points at the hotel. How about that? Overnight stay points. Maybe that could be useful for you in your traveling excursions. All right. Hey, Tudo, thank you so much once again for your generosity and for getting into this program late. Because quite frankly, we've gone 90 minutes tonight, and that was my plan. And we've run out of chats. We don't have any more phone calls in the queue, whether it be a video call or an audio call. So we're going to call this a night here on the Big Blue Breakdown Live. I'm Paul Dottino. We've been talking New York Giants football. Opening day, Sunday, 1 o'clock at the Washington Commanders. We hope you will come back on Friday. Take a look at our taped program as, again, we break down specific matchups in this Giants and Commanders game. And it can't come soon enough for me. Keep it tuned to the New York Giants on SI, YouTube channel, and Media Network for all of your Big Blue news. So long, everybody.